Captain Jake Morrison stepped off the transport shuttle and onto the metal floor of the Galactic Council station. The massive space station floated in orbit around Kepler 442b, a blue-green world that reminded him of Earth. Jake wore the simple gray uniform of a human diplomatic vessel captain. His ship, the UES Harmony, was docked nearby with other peaceful vessels from across the galaxy. Jake walked through the crowded corridors of the station. Aliens of many different species moved around him. Tall, thin beings with 4 arms carried data tablets. Short, furry creatures rolled on wheels instead of walking. Large, insect-like aliens clicked their mandibles as they talked in their strange language. Jake smiled and nodded politely at each group he passed. The human captain made his way to the main council chamber. Inside, Ambassador Lisa Carter was already setting up for her presentation. Lisa was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair. She had represented humanity in the Galactic Council for over 10 years. The aliens trusted her because she always spoke of peace and cooperation. "Good morning, Jake," Lisa said as he approached. "Are you ready for another day of showing how peaceful and harmless we humans are?" Jake smiled. "Always ready, Ambassador. The medical nanobots are loaded and ready for demonstration." Around the chamber, alien delegates were taking their seats. The reptilian Jextar representatives hissed quietly among themselves. Their scales were dark green and their eyes were cold and calculating. They had joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago and controlled 12 star systems. The insectoid, hive collective delegates arranged themselves in perfect rows. Each bug-like creature was identical to the others. They moved as one mind controlling thousands of bodies. Their homeworlds produced most of the galaxy's food, making them very important in galactic politics. Other species filled the remaining seats. The ethereal communion, beings of pure energy who lived in special containment suits. The stone wardens, massive rock-like creatures who barely fit in their reinforced chairs. The aquatic federation, fish-like beings who sat in water-filled tanks. Lisa stood at the center podium and activated the holographic display. Images of human settlements appeared in the air above her. Green farms covered rolling hills. Cities, with glass towers, reached toward blue skies. Children played in parks while adults worked in laboratories and hospitals. "Honored delegates," Lisa began, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Today I present humanity's latest contributions to galactic civilization. Our medical nanobots can heal injuries and cure diseases in hours instead of months. Our agricultural enhancement systems can increase crop yields by 40%. The Jextar delegate, Councillor Vexthol, leaned forward. "These gifts are generous, Human Carter, but what do your people gain from sharing such valuable technology?" Lisa smiled warmly. "We gain friends, Counselor. Humanity believes that by helping others, we create a better galaxy for everyone." Several alien delegates made sounds of approval. The Stone Warden representative, a massive being called Granite Who Endures, spoke in a voice like grinding rocks. "Humans continue to prove their value as peaceful contributors. Your species brings no threat, only assistance." Jake watched the proceedings with practiced calm. Inside, he was counting weapons. The Jextar guards carried plasma rifles. The Hive Collective had small energy pistols. The station's security forces were lightly armed, expecting no real threats. None of them suspected that Jake himself was more dangerous than any weapon in the room. While Lisa continued her presentation, Jake's mind wandered to New Montana, a human colony world on the outer rim. Colonel Ben Rodriguez was probably watching the morning construction crews right now. To any observer, they looked like workers building another research facility. Solar panels, communication arrays, and laboratory buildings were taking shape. But Jake knew the truth. Those solar panels could power defensive shields. The communication arrays were actually sensor networks that could detect ships jumping out of hyperspace 3 systems away. The laboratory buildings had reinforced walls thick enough to survive orbital bombardment. Underground, missile silos, and fighter bays waited in hidden chambers. Ben Rodriguez stood on a hill overlooking the construction site. He wore civilian clothes and carried a tablet like any other project manager. The workers below him looked like ordinary colonists. They laughed and joked as they worked. Some were young men and women who had come to the frontier seeking adventure. Others were older, experienced people looking for a quiet life on a new world. What the aliens didn't know was that every single worker was a trained soldier. The young woman operating the crane was Sergeant Amy Bell, a combat engineer who could build fortifications under enemy fire. The older man directing the foundation work was Major Paul Garcia, a veteran of 3 classified military operations. Ben checked his watch and activated his communicator. Morning report to command. Construction on schedule. No suspicious activity detected in local space. The response came immediately. Acknowledged, New Montana base. Continue operations as planned. Ben smiled and closed the channel. The aliens thought humans were peaceful farmers and scientists. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for war since the day they joined the Galactic Council. Back on the station, Lisa was finishing her presentation. In conclusion, humanity offers these technologies freely to all members of the Galactic Council. We ask for nothing in return except continued peaceful cooperation. The chamber erupted in approving sounds from dozens of different species. The Jextar delegate nodded approvingly. Your species continues to exceed expectations, Ambassador Carter. The Council accepts your generous gifts. As the session ended, Jake helped Lisa pack up her equipment. Other delegates approached to express their gratitude and to discuss trade agreements. Everyone wanted to do business with the peaceful, generous humans. Another successful day, Lisa said quietly as they walked back toward their ship. Jake nodded. The mask holds perfectly. They still see us exactly as we want them to. Neither of them knew that their peaceful charade was about to be tested. Deep in space, far from the Galactic Council station, 4 powerful alien fleets were gathering. The Dominion Coalition had been watching humanity for months. They had decided that humans were too valuable to remain free. The Coalition believed they could easily conquer the weak, peaceful species and claim their advanced technology. They had no idea they were about to discover what humans were really capable of when threatened. War was coming to the galaxy and humanity was ready. 3 days after Lisa Carter's peaceful presentation, everything changed. Captain Jake Morrison was eating breakfast in his quarters when the emergency alert sounded throughout the Galactic Council station. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and alien voices spoke urgent warnings in dozens of languages. Jake rushed to the main council chamber where hundreds of delegates were gathering. Ambassador Lisa Carter was already there, her face pale but determined. On the massive screen at the front of the chamber, 4 enormous alien fleets filled the darkness of space. Counselor Vex Thule of the Jextar stood at the central podium. His reptilian features were tight with fear. The Dominion Coalition has issued an ultimatum to this council. They demand that all human territories and populations be surrendered to them within 72 hours. Angry sounds filled the chamber. The Stone Warden delegate, Granite Who Endures, spoke in his grinding voice. What right does the Coalition have to make such demands? They claim humans possess biological and technological advantages that belong to the stronger species, Vexthul replied. They say humans are too weak to defend themselves, so the Coalition will integrate them into their empire. Lisa stood up slowly. And what does the Council intend to do about this illegal demand? An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. The Insectoid Hive Collective delegates clicked their mandibles nervously. The Ethereal Communion representatives flickered in their containment suits. Finally, Vexthul spoke again. The Council has voted. We cannot risk war with the Coalition over one member species. Humanity will be removed from Council protection. You have 48 hours to evacuate this station. Jake watched Lisa's face carefully. For 10 years, she had smiled and spoken of peace and cooperation. Now, for the first time since he had known her, Ambassador Lisa Carter looked truly angry. I see, Lisa said calmly. The Council abandons its members when threatened by bullies. Very well. Humanity respectfully declines your decision. We will handle this matter ourselves. Several alien delegates laughed. The Aquatic Federation representative made bubbling sounds of amusement in his water tank. Handle it yourselves. You have no military. Your ships carry no weapons. What can peaceful farmers and scientists do against the coalition war fleets? Lisa smiled, but it was not the warm smile she usually wore. This smile was cold and sharp like a blade. You are about to find out. Jake activated his communicator and spoke 3 words that had been waiting 50 years to be said. Protocol 7. Execute. Across human space, the real war began. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat in her command chair aboard the UES Defiance, hidden in the asteroid belt of the Sol system. For 15 years, the aliens had known her as Colonial Survey Coordinator Sullivan, a middle-aged woman who organized peaceful exploration missions. They had no idea she commanded the largest fleet in galactic history. Kate's communicator crackled, with Jake's voice. Protocol 7. Execute. Acknowledged, Kate replied. She turned to her bridge crew. All stations, implement emergency protocol. Signal all hidden assets. The mask comes off now. Throughout the bridge, officers who had pretended to be civilian surveyors and scientists began activating weapon systems that had been hidden for decades. The UES Defiance was not a survey vessel. It was a dreadnought battleship with enough firepower to destroy a moon. Around the Sol system, other ships revealed their true nature. What looked like cargo transports deployed fighter squadrons. Research stations extended massive gun batteries. Mining platforms launched clouds of defensive drones. On the agricultural world of Haven's Rest, Sergeant Paul Garcia was working in a wheat field when his communicator buzzed. He had been pretending to be a farmer for 3 years. The coalition scouts watching the planet saw only a peaceful man growing food for his family. Paul read the message and smiled grimly. Finally, he muttered. He pressed a hidden button on his farming equipment. Across the wheat field, other farmers stopped their work and looked at him. In seconds, 200 agricultural workers had become the 7th Marine Rapid Response Division. The wheat field itself began to change. Hidden panels in the ground slid open, revealing weapons caches and communication equipment. The farmhouse Paul lived in extended armored walls and defensive turrets. The barn became a command bunker. Paul looked up at the sky where coalition scout ships were probably watching. Come on down, boys, let's see how you like fighting real soldiers. Meanwhile, Dr. Helen Wright was in her laboratory on the research station orbiting Kepler 186f. The aliens knew her as a peaceful xenobiologist who studied plant genetics. They did not know she was actually the head of human military research and development. Helen opened a secure channel to military command. This is Research Division Alpha. All projects are green for deployment. Repeat, all projects are green. For 20 years, Helen had been studying every alien species in the galaxy. Not their cultures or their art, but their biology. She knew exactly what diseases would affect Jextar reptilians. She knew which sonic frequencies would disable hive collective communications. She knew how to turn the ethereal communions, energy bodies, against them. The coalition thought they were fighting weak humans. They were about to learn they were fighting an enemy that had studied them completely and prepared weapons designed specifically to kill them. Admiral Rick Thompson received the activation signal aboard his flagship in the Proxima Centauri system. The coalition intelligence report said he commanded a small defensive fleet of 200 ships. They were about to discover that human intelligence was far better than theirs. Rick's small fleet numbered 2,000 ships. Each vessel was equipped with weapons technology 30 years more advanced than anything the coalition possessed. Human ships could jump farther, fight longer, and hit harder than any other vessels in the galaxy. But the real surprise was not the ships. It was the people who crewed them. Captain Amy Bell had spent 5 years pretending to be a mining engineer. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parks had posed as a trade negotiator. Colonel Nancy Price had been known as an agricultural coordinator. Every single person in Rick's fleet was a trained military professional with years of combat experience. The coalition believed they were about to crush a peaceful species. Instead, they were about to face an enemy that had been preparing for this war since the day humans first left Earth. Back on the council station, Jake Morrison was helping Lisa Carter pack her belongings. The other delegates watched nervously as human personnel calmly prepared to leave. They expected to see fear and panic. Instead, they saw quiet determination. Ambassador, Counselor Vex Thule approached hesitantly. Perhaps the council could, reconsider. Surely we can find a peaceful solution. Lisa looked at him with that same cold smile. The time for peaceful solutions ended when you abandoned us to the coalition. Do not worry, Counselor. When this is over, we will remember who our friends were. As the last human shuttle left the station, emergency alerts began flooding galactic communication networks. Coalition fleets were reporting contact with unknown, human military forces. Entire invasion fleets were going silent. The peaceful farmers and scientists were fighting back, and the galaxy was about to learn what humans really were. The Coalition's first attack came at dawn on Haven's Rest. General Crickstar of the Dominion Coalition stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his invasion fleet approach the peaceful farming world. 10,000 warships filled the space, around the planet like a metal storm cloud. This will be easy, Crickstar told his officers. Intelligence reports show only farmers and researchers on the surface. No weapons, no defenses. We will have the humans captured by evening. But as his ships entered orbit, something was wrong. The wheat fields below were not filled with running, screaming farmers. Instead, armed figures moved in organized patterns across the landscape. Defensive positions appeared where peaceful farms had been moments before. Sergeant Paul Garcia crouched behind a reinforced barrier that had risen from his wheat field. Around him, his Marines checked their weapons and waited for orders. Paul spoke into his communicator with calm confidence. Control, this is Haven's Rest Defense Force. We count 10,000 enemy ships in orbit, requesting immediate support. The response came from Admiral Kate Sullivan, now aboard her flagship far above the planet. Support is already on the way, Sergeant. Hold your positions. Show them what human soldiers can do. The Coalition ships began landing troops in the fields around Paul's position. Thousands of alien soldiers poured out of transport vessels. Crickstar's forces included the savage Krex warriors with their razor claws, the heavily armored Thuldan shock troops, and swarms of Hive Collective drones. What they found waiting for them changed everything they thought they knew about warfare. Paul's Marines did not fight like any soldiers the aliens had ever seen. They did not charge bravely into battle. They did not try to win through honor and courage. Instead, they fought like hunters who had studied their prey for years. When the Krex warriors charged with their claws extended, they ran into carefully placed mines that had been hidden in the wheat for months. When the Thuldan advanced with their heavy armor, human snipers hit them with bullets designed specifically to penetrate Thuldan metal plating. The Hive Collective drones tried to coordinate their attack through mental links, but human jammers filled the air with sonic frequencies that disrupted their communications. The drones began attacking each other in confusion. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parks led a small team through the chaos of the battlefield. While the aliens focused on the main fight, Steve and his soldiers moved like ghosts through their lines. They planted explosives on Coalition command vehicles. They captured enemy officers and stripped them of intelligence data. They hit supply convoys and communication centers. The Coalition had brought 10,000 ships to capture one farming world. But they were not fighting farmers. They were fighting an enemy that understood war as the complete destruction of the enemy's ability to fight back. In space above the planet, Admiral Rick Thompson's fleet finally revealed itself. The Coalition sensors had detected 200 human ships hiding in the asteroid belt. As Rick's vessels moved to engage, the Coalition commanders prepared for an easy space battle. Then the human fleet kept growing. 500 ships, 1,000 ships, 1,500 ships, 2,000 fully armed human warships emerged from hiding places throughout the system. Crickstar stared at his tactical display in shock. How is this possible? Our intelligence said they had no military ships at all. His communications officer, a nervous Zextar named Vesitul, checked his instruments twice. General, I am reading human weapon signatures unlike anything in our databases. Their energy output is impossible. Rick Thompson's flagship, the UES Retribution, led the human formation toward the Coalition fleet. Rick had spent 10 years pretending to be a peaceful trade coordinator. Now he stood on his command bridge wearing the uniform of a human fleet admiral. All ships, this is Admiral Thompson. Weapons free. Show them what human engineering can really do. The space battle that followed shocked the galaxy. Human ships moved faster than the Coalition vessels. Human weapons hit harder than Coalition shields could handle. Human tactics were unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Instead of fighting ship to ship in honorable combat, the humans coordinated their entire fleet like a single weapon. They targeted Coalition supply ships and communication relays. They jammed enemy sensors and disrupted formation flying. They turned the space battle into a systematic dismantling of Coalition military capability. Captain Amy Bell commanded the destroyer UES Lightning as it swept through Coalition formations. Her ship and 5 others moved together like wolves hunting in a pack. They did not try to destroy every enemy ship. Instead, they disabled command vessels and supply transports, leaving the Coalition fleet blind and helpless. Dr. Helen Wright watched the battle from her research station and activated her special projects. Across Coalition space, mysterious illnesses began affecting alien crews. Jextar soldiers found their scales turning brittle and falling off. Hive collective drones lost their ability to communicate with the central mind. Thuldan warriors discovered their armor was suddenly too heavy to move in. Helen had spent 20 years studying alien biology, and now she was using that knowledge as a weapon. Every species in the Coalition was fighting an enemy that knew exactly how to hurt them. The turning point came when Lieutenant General Carol Davis activated the Strategic Hammer Protocol. Carol had posed as a peaceful colonial administrator for 15 years. In reality, she commanded human strategic operations. Carol's forces did not attack Coalition military targets. Instead, they hit industrial worlds, supply centers, and communication hubs deep inside Coalition space. Human strike teams appeared hundreds of light years behind enemy lines, destroying the factories that built Coalition weapons and the food centers that fed Coalition armies. Within 6 hours of the first attack, the Coalition's ability to wage war was falling apart. Their fleets could not get supplies, their communications were jammed or destroyed. Their soldiers were fighting diseases designed specifically to kill their species. General Krikstar sat in his command chair as reports poured in from across Coalition space. Every major industrial world was under attack. Every supply line was cut. Every communication center was destroyed or captured. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "They are just farmers and scientists, peaceful people with no military." His intelligence officer, Major Zektha, looked up from her console with terrified eyes. "General, I think we have made a terrible mistake. These humans are not peaceful. They have been preparing for this war longer than we have existed as a Coalition." On Haven's Rest, Sergeant Paul Garcia stood among the wreckage of the Coalition landing force. Around him, his Marines were collecting prisoners and securing enemy equipment. The battle had lasted 4 hours. The Coalition had lost 8,000 soldiers. The humans had lost 12. Paul activated his communicator and called Admiral Sullivan. "Haven's Rest is secure, Admiral. Enemy ground forces are neutralized. What are your orders?" Kate's voice came back calm and professional. "Well done, Sergeant. Prepare for Phase 2. We are taking this war to their homeworlds." Paul smiled grimly as he looked up at the burning Coalition ships falling from the sky. The aliens had wanted to see what peaceful humans could do. Now they were learning that humans had never been peaceful at all. They had just been waiting for someone to give them a reason to fight. The mask was off. The real war was just beginning. Admiral Dan Foster stood in the war room deep beneath the surface of Earth. Around him, holographic displays showed the current status of human forces across the galaxy. Green dots marked human victories. Red dots showed Coalition positions under attack. There were very few red dots left. Dan was 78 years old and had been planning this war for 50 years. While other humans smiled and spoke of peace to alien delegates, Dan had been studying every species in the galaxy and preparing for the day when humanity would have to fight for survival. "Admiral," his aide, Captain Tony Clark, approached with a data tablet. "Coalition resistance is collapsing on all fronts. Their industrial capacity is down to 12%. Military effectiveness is at 15% and falling." Dan nodded as he watched the tactical displays. "And their morale?" Completely. Broken, sir. We are receiving surrender requests from individual ships and even entire fleets. Some coalition worlds are asking for separate peace agreements. Dan walked to the large window that looked out over the command center. Hundreds of officers worked at stations throughout the massive underground facility. These were the people who had spent decades preparing for this moment. They had studied alien psychology, alien biology, alien technology, and alien warfare. Now, all that preparation was paying off. Tony, do you know why we built all of this? Dan asked, gesturing at the command center. Do you know why we spent 50 years pretending to be something we were not? Tony stood at attention. To protect humanity, sir. More than that, Dan replied. We did this so that never again would humanity face extinction. Never again would we be helpless while others decided our fate. Dan activated a historical file on his personal display. Images appeared showing events from Earth's past. Great cities in ruins, millions of people fleeing from armies, children crying in the wreckage of their homes. Humanity learned hard lessons on Earth, Tony. We learned what happens when peaceful people are not prepared for war. We learned that sometimes the choice is not between peace and war, but between victory and extinction. Meanwhile, Captain Nancy Price led her strike force toward the coalition capital world of Dominax Prime. Her fleet of 200 ships moved through hyperspace like sharks through dark water. Nancy had spent 12 years pretending to be an agricultural coordinator. In reality, she was one of humanity's most experienced combat commanders. Captain, her weapons officer Lieutenant Mike Brown reported, "We are approaching the target. System. Coalition defense fleet detected. Approximately 500 ships guarding the capital." Nancy studied the tactical display. Dominax Prime was the heart of coalition power. Massive cities covered the planet's surface. Orbital shipyards built coalition warships. Command centers coordinated military operations across a dozen star systems. Analysis, Mike. What do you see? Mike highlighted key positions on the display. Standard defensive formation, Captain. They are protecting the military targets and government centers. Classic defensive strategy. Nancy smiled coldly. Wrong target, Lieutenant. We are not here to destroy their military. We are here to destroy their will to fight. Her ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Dominax system. The coalition defense fleet immediately moved to intercept, but Nancy's formation split apart like water flowing around a rock. Instead of engaging the defending ships, her vessels headed straight for the civilian infrastructure. Coalition Admiral Thexmore watched in horror from his flagship as human ships ignored his battle fleet and attacked power stations, communication centers, and transportation hubs. The humans were not trying to conquer Dominax Prime. They were trying to make it impossible for the planet to function. What kind of warfare is this? Thexmore demanded. They ignore our military and attack civilian targets. This is not honorable combat. His tactical officer, Commander Veklas, stared at the display with growing understanding. Admiral, I think they are not fighting for honor. They are fighting to win completely. On the planet's surface, panic spread through the great cities of Dominax Prime as the lights went out and communication systems failed. Coalition citizens who had cheered for war against the weak humans now cowered in darkness as human precision strikes destroyed everything that made their civilization work. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parks led a small team through the underground tunnels beneath the Coalition's primary command center. While the space battle raged overhead, Steve and his soldiers moved like ghosts through the enemy's most secure facility. Steve had spent years studying Coalition architecture and security systems. He knew exactly where their computers were located. He knew which corridors would be guarded and which would be empty. He knew how to disable their defenses without triggering alarms. His team reached the central data core without firing a single shot. Within minutes, they had downloaded every piece of intelligence the Coalition possessed. Battle plans, ship locations, industrial capacity, political structure, everything. But more importantly, they uploaded something into the Coalition computer network. A message that would be broadcast to every Coalition world simultaneously. Back in Earth's command center, Admiral Dan Foster received confirmation that the data infiltration was complete. He activated his personal communicator and spoke to human forces across the galaxy. All units, this is command. Phase 3 is authorized. Begin Revelation Protocol. Across Coalition space, the message Steve Parks had planted began broadcasting on every communication channel. It was a recording of Admiral Dan Foster himself, speaking directly to the Coalition populations. Citizens of the Dominion Coalition. Dan's voice echoed through 1,000 star systems. You have been told that humans are weak farmers and scientists. Your leaders promised you easy victory over a helpless species. You have been lied to. The broadcast continued with images that shocked the Coalition worlds, human industrial facilities that dwarfed anything the Coalition had built. Fleets of warships numbering in the tens of thousands, weapons that could destroy entire planets, military forces that had been preparing for galactic war since before the Coalition even existed. We are not farmers who stumbled into space, Dan's message continued. We are the descendants of a species that spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of warfare. We joined your galactic community not as helpless children, but as apex predators studying our environment. The most terrifying revelation came next. Dan showed the Coalition populations exactly how long humans had been watching them. Every species had been studied, cataloged, and analyzed. Human intelligence knew the location of every Coalition military base, every industrial center, every political leader. We could have conquered this galaxy at any time in the last 50 years, Dan's voice said calmly. We chose not to, because we hoped for peaceful coexistence. You have chosen war instead. Now you will learn why that was a mistake. General Crickstar, the Coalition commander who had started this war, sat in his detention cell aboard a human prison ship. Through the small window, he could see his homeworld burning, not from human weapons, but from riots and civil unrest as Coalition society collapsed. A human guard, Corporal Lisa Martinez, brought him his daily meal. Crickstar looked up at her with defeated eyes. Why? He asked. Why did you let us believe you were weak? Why did you not show your strength from the beginning? Lisa set down the food tray and looked at the broken alien general. Because, General, we hoped you would be better than this. We hoped that if we showed you kindness and cooperation, you would respond with the same. We were wrong. She turned to leave, then stopped. We spent 50 years trying to prove that different species could live together in peace. You spent 50 years planning to enslave us. The difference between us is not strength, General. It is wisdom. As Lisa walked away, Crickstar understood the final truth. Humanity had not been hiding their strength because they were afraid. They had been hiding it because they were merciful. The Coalition had mistaken mercy for weakness, and now they were paying the price for that error. The war was ending, but the real lesson was just beginning. Never again would anyone mistake human kindness for human weakness. 6 months after the war began, Ambassador Lisa Carter walked back into the Galactic Council chamber. The same aliens who had abandoned humanity now sat in their seats, but everything had changed. Fear filled the air like a thick fog. The delegates, who had once laughed at human weakness, now whispered nervously among themselves. Lisa wore the same diplomatic uniform she had always worn, but now everyone knew what it really represented. Behind her peaceful smile was the power to destroy entire civilizations. The gentle woman who spoke of cooperation commanded fleets that could burn worlds to ash. Counselor Vexthul of the Jextar stood to address her. His reptilian features showed none of their previous arrogance. Ambassador Carter, the Council welcomes your return. We have prepared new accords for discussion. Lisa smiled, and several delegates visibly shuddered. Thank you, Counselor. I believe we have much to discuss about the future of galactic civilization. She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Green. Areas marked human-controlled space, which now included the entire former Coalition territory. Yellow zones showed species under human protection. Red areas marked regions where conflicts were still being resolved by human peacekeeping forces. As you can see, Lisa began, The recent unpleasantness has resulted in some changes to galactic political structure. The Dominion Coalition has been dissolved. Their member species have requested human protection from future aggressive actions. The Stone Warden delegate Granite Who Endures spoke in his grinding voice. What does humanity intend to do with this newfound power? Lisa's expression became serious. What we have always intended, Counselor, to ensure peace and stability for all species. However, the rules have changed. She pressed a control and new information appeared on the display. Fleet positions, patrol routes, and monitoring stations spread across the galaxy like a vast web. The scope of human military presence was staggering. The Human Protection Doctrine is now in effect, Lisa announced. No species will ever again face extinction or forced integration. No government will be permitted to wage wars of conquest against civilian populations. No military force will be allowed to threaten the basic right of sentient beings to exist in peace. President Mary Johnson appeared on the main communication screen from Earth. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, but everyone in the chamber now knew that those kind eyes had watched the complete destruction of the most powerful military alliance in galactic history. Honored delegates, Mary said, humanity takes no pleasure in our new role as galactic protectors. We would much prefer to return to our farms and laboratories. However, recent events have proven that someone must ensure smaller species are not devoured by larger ones. The Aquatic Federation representative raised a tentacle nervously. What authority does humanity claim for this role? Mary's expression did not change, but her voice carried the weight of 50,000 warships. The authority of superior force, used in service of justice. We did not seek this responsibility, but we will not abandon it. Captain Jake Morrison stood at Lisa's side, no longer pretending to be a simple diplomatic vessel captain. His true rank insignia marked him as a fleet admiral, one of the most powerful military officers in human space. His presence reminded everyone that behind every human diplomat was the galaxy's most advanced military. The Council is free to continue, governing galactic trade, cultural exchange, and scientific cooperation, Jake explained. But matters of war and peace now fall under human jurisdiction. Any species that threatens another will answer to us. Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice came over the communication system from her flagship orbiting Earth. We have positioned monitoring stations in every major star system. Human patrols now guard the space lanes between all inhabited worlds. Our early warning networks can detect aggressive military buildups anywhere in the galaxy. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity had not simply won a war, they had restructured galactic civilization itself. Every species was now under human protection, whether they wanted it or not. Counselor Vexthul spoke hesitantly. And if a species wishes to withdraw from this protection? Lisa's smile never wavered. They are free to do so, Counselor. But they may not use that freedom to harm others. Think of us as the galaxy's immune system. We remain dormant unless a threat is detected. Captain Tony Clark entered the chamber carrying a data tablet. He whispered something to Lisa, who nodded and activated her communicator. Admiral Foster, please join us. Admiral Dan Foster appeared on the secondary communication screen. Behind him, the massive command center beneath Earth continued its work of monitoring galactic civilization. His weathered face showed the satisfaction of a man who had completed a 50-year mission. Delegates, Dan said, I want you to understand something important. This outcome was not our first choice. For 50 years, we hoped to prove that different species could coexist through cooperation and mutual respect. We were prepared to remain peaceful farmers and scientists forever. His expression hardened slightly. But we were also prepared for this. Every human colony, every research station, every diplomatic mission was part of a greater plan. We studied your species, your technologies, your military capabilities, and your political structures. We prepared for the day when someone would threaten human survival. Dr. Helen Wright's image appeared on another screen from her research station. The biological weapons we used against the Coalition have been secured and will never be used again, unless a species forces us to defend ourselves. We take no pleasure in causing suffering, but we will not hesitate to protect innocent life. The ethereal communion delegate flickered nervously in his containment suit. What happens to those who resist this new order? Jake Morrison answered with cold professionalism. Resistance is futile and pointless. We have overwhelming technological and numerical superiority. We know the location of every military base, every industrial center, and every government facility in the galaxy. Any species that chooses conflict over cooperation will lose quickly and completely. Sergeant Paul Garcia appeared on the final communication screen from New Montana, which had been revealed as one of humanity's primary military training centers. Behind him, thousands of soldiers continued their exercises, preparing for threats that might never come. The galaxy is now at peace, Paul said simply, not because everyone chooses peace, but because everyone who might choose war knows the consequences. Lisa Carter stepped forward as the various communication screens closed. The choice facing each species is simple: live in peace under human protection, or face the consequences of aggression. We prefer peace, but we are prepared for either option. She paused and looked around the chamber. Humanity spent 10,000 years learning how to wage war effectively. We spent the last 50 years hoping we would never need those skills. The coalition forced us to choose between survival and extinction. We chose survival. The chamber remained silent as the delegates absorbed the new reality. The peaceful farmers and scientists were gone forever, replaced by the galaxy's supreme military power. But strangely, the galaxy was safer now than it had ever been. The human protection doctrine is now in effect, Lisa announced formally. May it bring the galaxy the peace we all desire. As the session ended, delegates began filing out in nervous silence. The age of galactic warfare was over. The age of human protection had begun. Never again would any species face extinction, because humanity would not allow it. The mask was gone, but the commitment to peace remained. It was just enforced by different methods now.